Hello to all my story lovers. Welcome back in Storytime channel. I'm Pallavi reading interesting books for you. Today I'm reading From the Heavens to the Earth, written by the great Sudha Murty. Now let's go to the story. This is a mythological story. King Bahu of Ishwaku dynasty was not concerned about the welfare of his subjects or the protection of his kingdom. He would often be found drunk or gambling or both, and in no state to rule. Knowing that the kingdom was weak, another king waged a war against Bahu, who escaped the forest with his two wives and took shelter in the ashram of the sage Bhargava. To make matters worse, one of his wives was pregnant, and during this stressful time, the other wife became jealous and poisoned the first, despite knowing that she was with child. However, Sage Bhargava learnt of this and rushed to the woman's rescue. He did his best to drain the poison from her body, but it could not be removed completely, and the baby was born with traces of poison in his blood. So the baby boy was named Sagara, which also means along with poison. Sagara grew up in the sage ashram, learning the art of warfare and receiving an excellent education. Over time, he regained his father's lost kingdom and became a wonderful king. He had two wives. The first wife gave birth to a baby boy named Asamanjas, while the second wife performed a dedicated penance and was blessed with 60,000 children. These children collectively dug a pond that in time turned into an ocean. That's why the ocean is also called Sagara, for the sons of Sagara. Asamanjas turned out to be like his grandfather, and so did his 60,000 stray brothers. Sagara struggled to mold his children into worthy future kings. Meanwhile, in an attempt to establish supremacy, King Sagara decided to perform the Ashwamedha Yagna. During this process, a king's horse is allowed to wander around for a year. Wherever the horse goes, the king of that land either accepts the sovereignty of the master of the horse or challenges him. Once the horse returns to his master's kingdom, the king's status gets elevated to that of an undisputed sovereign. Lord Indra learnt of Sagara's plan and, fearful of the consequences, kidnapped the horse. The 60,000 children searched far and wide for the horse. But with no luck, after some time, they came across a meditating sage, Kapila. They stopped there, and one of them asked the sage if he had seen the horse, to which the sage did not reply because he was in deep meditation. But the children took the lack of response as an insult and began hitting the sage. Kapila finally broke his meditation and opened his eyes. They were red with anger. With one glance, all of them were reduced to ashes. When King Sagara learned of the dismay of his children, he rushed to sage Kapila. Folding his hands, he requested him, "Honored sage, I am aware that my children have made a grave mistake, but they have also done some good in their lives, including the creation of an ocean that sustains life. I beg you not to deprive them of attaining moksha. Kapila was a kind sage. He replied, "For your children to attain moksha, the river Ganga must flow over their ashes. Only they go to heaven." So the king offered penance to the gods in the hope of convincing them to let the river Ganga flow down to the earth and over his children's ashes. But Sagara died before his penance was complete, and the task remained incomplete for a long time. Many years down the line, Bhagiratha was born in the same clan and ascended the throne. He learnt of the story of sage Kapila and his ancestors and decided to pray to the Lord to beg for their salvation. Vishnu appeared and said, "Bhagiratha, the path has been set. You must convince Ganga to flow over their ashes. You must pray to her." Inspired, Bhagiratha began praying to Ganga, who originated at the feet of Lord Vishnu. He was aware that it was an Herculean task to convince her to descend from the heavens to the earth, and he put his heart and soul into his tapasya. Finally, Ganga appeared one day. On hearing his request, she said, "The force of my waters is too much for the earthly realm to sustain. Pray to Lord Shiva and ask him to reduce my spit so that the earth does not get washed away." Thus, Bhagiratha began another tapasya until Shiva finally appeared. He offered to let Ganga flow through his hair and only then descend to the earth. As Ganga rushed down, Shiva tied up his hair, letting just one stream escape and flow down to the earth. From that day on, Shiva came to be known as Gangadhara, and Ganga came to be known as Bhagirathi because of Bhagiratha's great penance to both Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Despite Shiva's strategy, the force of the Ganga was so strong that when she reached earth, the gush of the water flooded the ashram of sage Janu. Janu became so livid at the destruction that he drank the river, and the Ganga could not proceed further. When Bhagiratha learnt of this development, he became disheartened and prayed earnestly to the sage as well as to Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. Finally, the sage gave in and released Ganga through his ears. This is why Ganga is also known as Janvi. The river eventually flowed over the ashes of the Sagara's children and they attained salvation. People in India still believe that if the dead's ashes are immersed in the Ganga or if a dying person receives the holy water before death, he or she will achieve salvation. In history, what is today called the Bay of Bengal was known as Ganga Sagara or Purva Samudra, and the Arabian Sea was referred to as Sindhu Sagara or Pashchim Samudra. The Ganga originates from a glacier in the Himalayas called Gomukh, a cow's mouth, a little beyond the town of Gangotri, and merges with the sea at the Bay of Bengal. Many rivers such as Alka, Nanda, Yamuna, Saraswati, Sarayu, Gandak, and others join Ganga on her journey. A rock at Gangotri marks the spot where Bhagiratha did his tapasya, along with statues of Bhagiratha and Ganga. Similar status can also be seen at Sage Kapila's ashram in West Bengal. It is noteworthy that Bhagiratha's continuous penance led to the coining of the phrase Bhagiratha Prayatna, which is used to denote the effort required to put into a Herculean task. Now, Do you like this story? Then tell me in the comment box and subscribe our channel.